Hello,
Hello, everyone, and
Norman.
welcome to the 837th episode of the Chernobyl Diaries, featuring us. Hello, and I'm Norman. So today we're going to be covering the Chernobyl disaster, which happened on April 26, 1986.
Yeah.
Um, you want to start us off?
I mean, I I think you should start us off because this was mainly I kind of your idea, and
Okay,
so
so
I'm
Kyle
just
Hill, I'd like to credit Kyle Hill for a lot of what I learned about Chernobyl. His videos are very good. He's on YouTube. Check him out if you're interested. But he covers a lot of nuclear-based content and things like that, disasters specifically too. Um, and he's actually been to Chernobyl in person, which that was interesting actually.
yeah.
So the Chernobyl disaster happened quite a long time ago in the city of it was near the city of Pripyat in Ukraine, which at the time was part of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And what happened is some shit went down. I know that doesn't sound professional. I'll have to
A
work on
lot
that.
of a lot of things went wrong.
Anything that could have
Could have
gone
happened.
wrong that night went wrong.
Yeah.
And it was almost by design in a way. They built that reactor like it was a bomb.
It was. Yeah. It was. There was definitely some uh safety protocols not met.
Yeah, no, they violated a lot of safety protocols on that night. Um, I think it happened close to midnight. It was during a shift change, actually.
It happened during a shift change. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the night staff was on, and they had to do a safety test for reactor 4. Um, the safety test didn't quite go as planned, and to the operators' credit, they did what they were supposed to. They did everything they were supposed to try to stop it and mitigate a disaster and stop a meltdown. Unfortunately, because of how cheaply made the fuel rods were in the reactor, when they hit the button to stop the reactions from happening in the reactor by inserting the control rods, right?
Yeah.
This button is called the AZ5 button. When they hit that button, the tips of the control rods, which were tipped in graphite, were inserted into the reactor. What happened is the reactor was already spiking, and the graphite multiplied the amount of energy that was spiking. The graphite tips and the control rods stuck, so only the graphite tips were inserted. This caused the reactor to explode.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so when the explosion happened, everything was fucked.
Right.
Uh, the control operators, not seeing what had happened, most of them, uh, they were trying to put water into the core to to stop, to slow it, to stop, because their readings were there was like no water in the core. They were trying to get water into the core, to try to stop it,
Yeah.
not knowing that the core was gone. It had blown up. It melted down. It was gone. The whole thing was just blown to smithereens like a bomb. And it was a dirty bomb. It wasn't
Yeah.
just your normal average bomb. It was a dirty bomb. With so much radiation, it was stupid. So a couple of the operators went down below to try to put water into the core, not knowing the core was gone. Um, Firefighters were called to put out the fires that had happened, and even firefighters that weren't even scheduled that night, everybody was called to come in,
Yeah.
and so they went, and They were tasked with putting down the fire. They immediately started getting signs of acute radiation sickness. I mean, basically, as soon as you drove up to the power plant and you got out of that fire truck, you may as well have been a dead man walking.
Yeah, it was reported that there were like, yeah, 30 people in total were killed.
30 people,
30 people.
firefighters, right?
I believe it was firemen.
Yeah, there were chunks of graphite all around, strewn all around and stuff that was irradiated. Um, and so after they put out the fire, then they had to make an assessment of what to do next because they still had a lot of work to do to prevent the disaster from getting worse. This disaster was so bad that it could have wiped out all life in Europe.
Yeah. So I actually have the number here. So 28 firemen and emergency cleanup workers died in the first 3 months after the explosion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
49,360 people were evacuated.
mm-hmm. Um, One of the next things I want to bring up, since I mentioned they tried to flush the core with water, I want you to. I'm looking for it now, but I want you to find the names of the three men that went down below.
Uh, let's see.
There's Boris, Alexei,
The
and I
uh,
want to make a special mention of them.
yeah, Boris, Alexei, I must have corrected.
Hmm?
uh, the how many? It's not saying their names. Unfortunately, I can't find.
That doesn't make sense. Hold on, I'm taking a look.
Yeah, I can't find the name.
This should be taught in schools. These about the story about these three men in particular should be taught in schools, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yes.
Uh,
Uh,
the Chernobyl divers, also known as the Suicide Squad.
yeah.
Hold on, I'm taking a look. I'm looking at History Channel website actually.
So yeah, to catch up on what caused the accident. Yeah. So number four, RBMK reactor at the nuclear power plant at Chernobyl, Ukraine, are now controlled during a test at a low power, leading to an explosion and a fire that demolished the reactor building and released large amounts of radiation into the atmosphere.
Yep,
Um, the,
you're getting all the details that I'm not. Thank you.
yeah,
I'm going off like the top of my head right now of the shit that I learned and stuff. Thank you for
yeah.
filling in the details. I appreciate it.
Wait, read it. Safety measures were ignored. The Yeah, okay. So safety measures were ignored. The Ukraine fuel and reactor overheated and melted through the protective barrier. RBMK reactors do not have what is known as a containment structure. A
Hmm.
concrete and steel dome over the reactor itself designed to keep radiation inside the plant in the event of such an accident. Consequently, reactive elements including plutonium, iodine, strontium, potassium were scattered over a wide area. In addition, the graphite blocks used as smoldering materials in the RBMK caught fire at high temperature as air entered the reactor coil, which contributed to emissions of radioactive materials into the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Hang on, I'm just reading here. I'm probably going to be reading it word for word. Wait. Okay. On the 4th of May 1986, just a few days after the initial disaster, mechanical engineer Alexei Ananenko, senior engineer Valery Bespalov, and shift supervisor Boris Baranov stepped forward to undertake a mission that many considered to be suicide. They were advised that if they did not survive, their families would be taken care of. I want to add here that they didn't know if they would be able to take care of their families. These men
Yeah.
were basically guaranteed nothing, and I think they knew it too.
Exactly.
I think they knew full well that they might get absolutely nothing out of this, but they did their job anyway. So I'll continue. Um, the outcome of their mission would decide the fate of millions of people. Its importance was unparalleled in its magnitude and represents one of history's greatest sliding doors moments. On the day of the disaster, in an effort to control the blazing fire, firefighters pumped water into the nuclear reactor. One of the side effects was that it flooded the basement with radioactive water. This basement contained the valves that, when turned, would drain the bubbler pools that sat beneath the reactor and which acted as a coolant for the plant. Within a few days, it was discovered that molten nuclear material was melting through the concrete reactor floor, making its way slowly down towards the pools below. If the lava-like substance made contact with the water, it would cause a radiation-contaminated steam explosion that would destroy the entire plant along with its 3 other reactors, causing unimaginable damage and nuclear fallout the world would struggle to recover from. The pools containing some 20 million liters of water had to be drained, and the only way to do that was by manually turning the correct valves down in the now flooded basement. Enter our 3 heroes. If the 3 men were not courageous men, were not successful in their mission, the Chernobyl death toll would likely reach the millions. Nuclear physicist Vasily Nestorenko, I hope I'm not butchering that, declared that the blast would have had a force of 3 to 5 megatons, leaving much of Europe uninhabitable for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yep.
Hundreds of thousands. That's a lot of generations of people.
Yeah.
Dressed in wetsuits and equipped with just a flashlight, the 3 volunteers jumped into the darkness of the basement below and went in search of the crucial valves. The events that follow have been turned into somewhat of a modern myth. For decades after the event, it was widely reported that the 3 men swam through radioactive water in near darkness, miraculously located the valves even after their flashlight had died, escaped, but were already showing signs of acute radiation syndrome and sadly to come to radiation poisoning a short while later. They were apparently buried in lead coffins. That's not true. That the part where they died. That's what was reported, but no. Um,
Mm.
I will say this. I want to add something. These men were the only ones that could be called into action to perform this task. They were some of the only people, period, that could do it. And the only reason that they were the only ones that could do it was because they were the only ones that knew the exact layout of the basement, even in the dark. And there was just pitch darkness in most
Right.
places. They couldn't
Yeah.
see a thing. And because of the amount of radiation in some areas, their flashlights would go out. So
Yeah.
they had to literally feel their way around in this basement. It was quite literally a suicide mission.
Yeah. It definitely was. Uh,
Um, so
yeah. The fact of the matter is that because of those 3 men, Europe is still a country.
well, it's still a continent,
It's still a
like a
continent. Yeah.
habitable
But
area. Yes.
yeah, there's
Um, Okay, Andrew Leatherbarrow, the author of the 2016 book Chernobyl 12340, spent 5 years researching the disaster and discovered a slightly different yet no less heroic turn of events. The basement was flooded with radioactive water, but firefighters had previously pumped some of it out, so by the time the men jumped into the water, it was only at knee height. They weren't the first to enter either, as others had already gone into the basement to measure the radiation levels, although little to nothing is known about the fate of these people. The discovery of the valves was still miraculous, though, as Leatherbarrow states. The men entered the basement in wetsuits, radioactive water up to their knees, in a corridor stuffed with a myriad of pipes and valves. It was like finding a needle in a haystack. Yet they found that needle before the molten reactor core above them had melted its way down through the ceiling. A sigh of relief was breathed all around. Ananenko was later quoted as saying to the Soviet media, "Everyone at the Chernobyl nuclear power station was watching this operation. When the searchlight beam fell on a pipe, we were joyous. The pipe led to the valves. We heard the rush of water out of the tank, and in a few more minutes we were being embraced by the guys. The men exited the basement as heroes and rejoiced with their colleagues over a job well done. The three men would live longer than a few weeks, and none would succumb to acute radiation syndrome, as modern myth would have you believe. As of 2015, it was reported that two of the men were still alive and still working within the industry. The third man, Boris Baranov, passed away in 2005 of a heart attack."
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, those I wanted to make a special mention of those three men. That should be
Absolutely.
taught in schools because if there's anything that the Chernobyl disaster can teach us, it's two things. You can see the worst of humanity in that disaster, but you can also see the best of humanity.
Exactly. And that's another thing is that the the government in the Soviet Union during that time refused to send out anything about the disaster.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until what, and I'm going off by top of my head. I think it was only after 4 days that that there was an article that was actually got past the borders.
KGB, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah. They had to. The people had to basically.
but
People within.
they tried to hide it.
Yeah.
They yeah,
They tried to hide it from the U.S. They lied
they
to everybody.
lied about it happening, or
Mm-hmm. It was. It didn't get
and they
major.
classified it as probably a test that went wrong, just to kind of save their asses a bit. When
Yeah.
I think in reality is something they that was saying during the uh, I video that I had watched, and it was uh, uh, two YouTubers. I'm going to try to get their names correct here. Uh, um, but what was what was thought was actually happened was somebody during the night shift accidentally sat on the button that kicked off the whole problem. So it wasn't even a test. It was somebody accidentally pressing the button that
The
kicked off the whole problem.
the problem with that though is that that button had so many security devices on it because of what it could do, like shutting down everything, emergency stop.
Yeah, ex-
Like they had a covering, they had a little like pin key thing you'd have to pull, like all sorts of shit. So you couldn't just like you couldn't just sit on it by accident. You had to like go through a
oh
whole
no.
spiel. Yeah,
They no, actually, yeah.
you had to do a whole song and dance just to even press the button. You know, so sitting on it, that doesn't sound right to me. For a button like that, I would want security devices on that button so you don't just accidentally press it. You know?
Yeah, I'm going to have to send you the uh I'm going to have to send you the video too so you can watch it.
Okay.
But they actually entered into the control room for the fourth cooler.
Are you talking about Kyle Hill's channel at all?
No, not Kyle Hill. No.
Oh,
Um
you're talking about the other person that went to Chernobyl.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I saved it. So okay, yes. The Okay, so the YouTubers are Sam and Colby.
Sam and Colby, yeah, you
Yes.
told me about them.
And it's a 2 hour video. So
Excuse
it's
me,
a
sorry about that.
so yeah, it's a 2 hour video. And they got to talk with uh a survivor of the cleanup crew.
Oh, the liquidators.
Yes.
That's what they were
They talked
called.
with a living liquidator. They had
Nice.
to actually have a Russian translator with them because
Yeah.
he spoke no English.
Um,
But the two of them spent 3 days in Chernobyl.
huh.
3 days in Chernobyl.
That's in my opinion, that's like 3 days too many. just 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 because of the radiation and stuff.
Well, that's
Um,
the thing is that it's yeah, there's like the the levels of radiation are now very very low. Hence, because of all the fact that they cleaned, that they bulldozed a lot of surface level um,
yeah.
ground, basically.
Well,
And
to to continue with the story of Chernobyl, though, I
yeah,
want to continue after the three men did their thing. Uh, so they for the next several months they put in all sorts of efforts to try to contain the disaster that had happened. Not just I'm not talking hide it, but contain it. They I believe they poured a type of like a sand material into the core to stop it.
yeah,
Unfortunately, before they could do that, helicopters could not get close enough to the roof because there was a shitload of radiation ionizing the air.
yeah,
So let me. I got the Wikipedia article up, so I'm gonna kind of read aloud a little bit, and I'll add if I have input. In the months after the explosion, attention turned to removing the radioactive debris on the roof. While the worst of the radioactive debris had remained inside what was left of the reactor, it was estimated that there was approximately 100 tons of debris on that roof, which had to be removed to enable the safe construction of the sarcophagus, a complete concrete structure that would entomb the reactor and reduce radioactive dust being released into the atmosphere. So the initial plan was to use robots to clear the debris off the roof. One of the robots, I believe they called it the Joker, and I think
yep,
it was sent by Germany. It was supposed to be state of the art.
hmm
They brought it up to the roof. They started running a test to see if it worked. It failed.
yeah.
The radiation was so high that it
That
fucked up the
the
electronics.
electronics were immediately affected.
There was
Yeah,
only one effective way to remove the debris on the roof left. You had to send organic robots, or in other
or
words, humans,
yep,
with shovels. So that's what they did. They sent thousands of people onto that roof to shovel debris off. and I believe they had 90 seconds. There is actually on the TV show did a very good job, I would say, of showcasing, of demonstrating how bad it really was. Chernobyl. I wanna find the quote because this guy said it over and over to the
Right.
people going up on the roof. I want to find the okay, Chernobyl liquidator quote. Not coat. I need to quote. Um rooftop. Just what he was saying alone honestly kind of sends chills a little bit. The camera quality has a lot of people asking if it's real or not. Reddit, of course, Reddit. The camera quality is bad because the radiation's messing up the cameras. You cannot get good camera quality with radiation messing up your cameras, especially when they're really old cameras, like from the 80s. Just saying. You
Yeah,
can't
right.
you can't get very good. You just can't. Um bio robots. That's what they called them. Bio
Yeah,
robots.
viral. Yeah.
Yep. I'm trying to find. I want to know what the instruction. No, no. All of a sudden, my typing goes to hell. Actually, I should probably practice typing, like actually practice it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm trying to see here. Anyway, there is a okay rooftop. There is a scene on YouTube. Um, it showcases it, in my opinion, perfectly. The graphite clearing on the roof. In October of 1986, they sent in thousands of volunteers.
Yeah.
Mm. I say that in quotes, volunteers. Um, hold on, I'm taking a listen. You go ahead and talk. I'm gonna take a listen real quick.
Right. So, uh, going with the idea of the fact that when I watched the Sam and Colby uh, 2 hour video, um, they were able to talk with one of the survivors of that cleanup crew, and that he still lived. He went back to Pripyat to live the rest of his life, and that there were actually a small community of uh, elderly people who moved back to the houses that they were born in or lived in prior to the disaster, and that they'll refuse to leave. Have and it's such a wonderful little community. It's just a community of like maybe 7 people living together
Hmm.
in their neighborhood. quite beautiful.
Huh?
It's yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying
Right.
to. I'm still trying to find the quote on the rooftop guy. Uh,
Right.
I think I almost want to take like I almost want to take an audio snippet from the Chernobyl episode. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, we could always just take an audio snippet of that and edit that in, correct?
Yeah. I can work that in.
Yeah, the most important 90 seconds of your life. Commit to your task and good luck. Well, yeah, good luck. But yeah,
Right.
they had 90-second rotations on the roof with shovels to get rid of the graphite. Don't look over the edge, you will get blasted with radiation and die. Um, yeah, it was a whole mess. In order to finally build the sarcophagus, that also took a lot of lives. Like they paid the ultimate price too.
Yeah.
Overall, I think it was around 600,000 uh, people, liquidators and stuff, that went to try to clean up and mitigate the disaster as much as possible. And they are still trying to clean it up to this very day. They're still trying to take apart the reactor little by little and basically dissipate it so that it is no longer a threat. Not so easy with the elephant's foot. Do you know what an elephant's foot is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they actually shot it with an AK-47.
God.
They actually had somebody shoot it to see if they could like get rid of it somehow with a assault rifle.
God.
Oh my god. So just looking at it, like not with the camera, but being in person, right? And just getting a look at it is horrifying. It is not a monster. It is not a person. It is not a weapon, an intended weapon even. It's not any of that, right? But just being like within just seeing it, you know it's doing damage because the amount of sheer radiation that it is emanating, because this elephant's foot is actually the remainder of what used to be the core itself. It is a substance known as corium, which is only created in the event of a nuclear meltdown. And it stays molten and moving very, very slowly for many, many years. Um, Trying to cool it would not be advised just because of the amount of radiated steam that would come from it. Um, so basically, your hands are pretty much tied as to how to deal with it. It's called the elephant's foot because of the way it's shaped like an elephant's foot, how it just kind of splattered like. So, do you have details to add?
Um. No, I'm just reading this. I'm also listening to you and also reading this article from on from Frontline from on PBS,
Mm-hmm.
and that the the cause of the Chernobyl accident was a mismanaged electrical engineering experiment. Engineers with no knowledge of reactor physics were interested to see if they could draw electricity from the turbine generator of the number 4 reactor until unit to run water pumps during an emergency. When the turbine was no longer being driven by the reactor but still spinning, the engineers needed the reactor to wind up the turbine. Then they planned to idle it to 2.5% power.
Hmm.
Unexpected electrical demand on the afternoon of April 29th delayed the experiment until 11 o'clock that night. When the
It
experiment,
that delay that delay is what also
yeah,
helped cause the disaster too,
the experiment,
because
yeah,
they
yeah,
left it at low power.
yeah. So when the experiment finally started, they felt pressed to make up for lost time. So they reduced the reactor's power level too rapidly. That mistake caused a rapid buildup of neutron absorbing fission by products in the reactor core, which poisoned the reaction. To compensate, the operators withdrew a majority of the reactor's control rods, but even with the rods withdrawn, they were unable to increase the power level to more than 30 megawatts, a low level of operation at which the reactor instability potential is at its worst.
Hmm.
And that Chernobyl plant own safety rules for for both.
So yeah, it's shit got fucked. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. The delay did not help with the poisoning of the reactor. I mean, I'll,
And the
I'll give the show is good.
yeah,
It's not completely 100% accurate in certain ways because basically Hollywood. Like for
yeah,
instance, there was a one guy they were sent to try to take a look. They sent a few of the workers in to try to when it initially happened, they tried to send a few people in to look at the reactor. One guy was having trouble and he had to hold the door. And he survived up until a certain point. I think he died of like cancer years down the road. But
but
in the show, what happened, and this is not real. This does not just happen. What happened in the show was as he was walking away from the door, all of a sudden he starts bleeding in his abdominal area, and
right.
and that doesn't make any sense. Like that, no,
No.
that doesn't just happen. That would take days or weeks to actually start happening, not like minutes, not like that. So there's a few things the show gets wrong, and I don't like that. I get they're trying to go for dramatic effect. I appreciate it, but try to keep it accurate too if you can. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's the thing. If you're going to base some sort of movie on something
It was
that
a TV show.
TV show, anything, is that
Hmm.
you got if it's going to be a documentary, it's got to be a documentary. You can't just go in and start changing up a little bit of the rules, basically.
Well, yeah, basically, don't feed the people bullshit
Don't
because
feed
people
people
will.
false positive, like fa- false
Yeah,
information. It's
yeah,
because then it leads to the whole unnecessary debates online
yeah.
that
So,
shouldn't
but
be.
they did a good job, I say, during the court case with a lot of the people. What some of them that were in the control room when it happened, like Dyatlov, for instance, who was, I believe he was the head engineer. You know how to spell his name?
What
Dyatlov.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, they got him wrong too, by the way, apparently.
Hmm.
He was actually a pretty nice guy. The show made him look like a dick to try to add a villain to the story. They didn't need a villain. I'm
The
just gonna say it
villain
right.
of the story is the fact that the disaster happened.
Yeah, they don't need another villain. They tried to make him look like an asshole and a dick in the control room to try to get people to be like, no, this, you know what I mean? Uh, Not only is that inaccurate, but it's also disrespectful. Like
Yeah.
he it's not his fault really that shit went haywire and stuff. Honestly, it just everything was
It
fucked
was
because of the way it was like it
yeah,
was by
like I
design.
was yeah, like I was reading in the article, it was poorly managed.
Hmm.
It was delayed, you know, to a night crew who had little to no experience on.
Yeah, there was that too. They didn't have good instructions. They had little to no experience. Like some of the stuff in the manual was like crossed out or
Yeah,
whatever. So they didn't even know what to do. Um, they had like one of the senior engineers was like 25 or something, and
you know,
he'd only been on for like a little bit. Like you know what I mean? He didn't know what he was doing. Um, Dyatlov in the show, he came he was coming off as aggressive, like just do it, yeah. You know. He wasn't like that at all. Apparently, he was actually very respectful and stuff.
he was
And
he was
his
honestly just doing his best, and
he was
he
just doing his job
he was
basically,
doing his job,
and
and
he was doing it with the to the best of his ability. They didn't have experienced people.
yeah,
They
he
didn't
wasn't.
have good
Yeah,
instructions.
yeah. It just
Everything was
sounds like
just
to me that it was just like this that this was put on like last minute. Like, hey, can we do this? And
yeah.
but nobody that came up with the idea wanted to experiment with it until like the night crew came in.
I think the test was even delayed. I
Yeah, that's what
don't
I
quote
said.
me on
It
that.
was supposed to start at that the
No, no,
initially
no.
was
I
going to
don't mean on
happen at
that
seven
day. I
o'clock.
mean, I think it was delayed even before then.
Yeah,
But
but
don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. Not right now.
no, but
Not that it's important either. The fact is, it happened,
yeah, it
and
was the afternoon. Yeah, the
the the
April
aftermath
29th
of that.
delayed the experiment
Yeah.
from
The
yeah
aftermath of that is that they
from the
realized that
afternoon to
RBMK
11.
reactors are not as stable as they thought.
Yeah,
Not to mention, you can't just use cheap materials to cut costs in making nuclear reactors. And that's basically what happened is they cut costs. They added graphite tips to the damn control rods, which caused it to happen, and they killed thousands of people doing it and irradiated thousands more, tens of thousands more. Not to mention, the whole city of Pripyat had to be cleared out. I believe the exclusion zone is several hundred miles or something
the
around.
exclusion. Yeah, the exclusion, and I actually had it up. Uh,
Because initially it was just going to be the city of Pripyat was just going to be cleared out, and then they realized, no, we got to clear out like way more distance. We need to just isolate this whole area.
16. It's, I'm seeing 16.5 kilometers,
Yep,
10 miles. Yeah,
10 miles. I thought it was like hundreds though. Or am I wrong? Was that for dramatization too from the TV show? Because if it was, I'm
probably, probably. Yep, I'm going to try to. Yeah, let me go back, see if I can find the exclusion zone. But, um, but yeah, it just sounded like the kind of made up that the TV show kind of made up some numbers for dramatic
yeah.
effect, and
Oh boy,
and I'm
that
sorry, but
sucks.
if you're doing a series about something that actually happened that was a true disaster, you got to make it as true as it can be.
Well, they did it for the sake of entertainment. I can respect that to a certain degree, but you're also playing with historical events that actually happened. Um, and that's where things can get a little skewed. Like especially like there's sort of a morally gray area there when it comes to creating a show or a movie,
Yeah.
because again, the purpose is to entertain, but you know, yeah, I've already said it. You're playing with true historical events, so you got to
So
be careful.
how large? Okay, so the affected radioactive fallout was that is actually 150,000 square kilometers
Mm.
in Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine.
Okay, that's what I figured. That's
Yeah,
what I figured. Okay, so that number wasn't made up.
yeah,
Okay. Damn, my hair's
and
getting.
an area spanning 30 kilometers around the plant is considered the exclusion zone.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so 30
Okay.
kilometers is like you cannot be there without protection.
Yeah. And it's going to be that way for a long time.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, like that's not going away for a very long time. They're trying to study now now in the aftermath. They're thinking of building a second sarcophagus over the first one to try to contain it, keep it contained because the first one is aging
yeah,
um, and deteriorating even a little bit. They're also studying life around the exclusion zone because surprisingly, there's quite an abundance of life everywhere. You got trees growing, all sorts of things, and so they're trying to study that and
yeah.
find out why it's flourishing so much. Because if we can figure that out, we can probably figure out a way to make, I don't know, Radaway.
Or
Wouldn't that have been
the
handy?
fact of the matter is that yeah, it's like in one area you can actually and they talk about it in the Sam and Colby special um, that the woodland area and how dramatically the growth differs from one area of the to another, and it's
Yeah,
in- amazing that in certain places it's dead, like it's just
there's just
dry grass,
nothing.
but
Okay,
in other places it's like uh, trees that are like 300, like hundreds of feet tall,
damn. And
and it's
and
just
they're
like,
still alive.
and the fact of the matter is that those trees weren't there before.
Hmm.
Those trees
Really?
were not, yeah,
Doesn't it? It takes a long time. I mean, okay, it happened in '86.
it
It's now
had
been
86, yeah,
37 years.
37 years, and there are trees that are hundreds of feet tall
I
growing
mean, I can
in
see that
in
actually a
Pripyat,
little bit. Maybe not hundreds, but definitely in the three digits.
yeah, but
So, I can see that, uh, which is amazing, really. And those trees just weren't even there at all. I have I don't know how relevant this is, but I'm gonna add it. There is a video game where they actually took like satellite scanned images all over the Chernobyl exclusion zone and stuff. It's called Chernobylite,
oh
and
yeah,
it's a fictional game,
I've
you
heard
know,
about that game. I
based in
kind of want to
reality.
play it.
But I was basically just exploring the hell out of Pripyat and stuff, and I'm just fascinated by everything around me because, yeah, a lot of it is the video game and stuff. So you can't really take too much of it at face value.
Oh no, it's like yeah, it's,
But
it's a
looking
all.
around still,
It's kind of
it's like
like the Fallout. It's kind of like the Fallout series where they kind of took. it's an alternative an alternative universe situation.
But like with how realistic it looks and everything, and
Yeah,
how well done it is, and being able to explore around, like looking up at Chernobyl. I'm not gonna lie, in the game you start out and you're going right to Chernobyl,
yeah,
and I just felt this like strange, like looking at the sarcophagus. I was just filled with this sense of awe.
yeah,
Like, I'm not saying good or bad, just awe. Because if you're standing in that spot in the world and you're looking at that, there's some shit happening with your body at the same time, like the
exactly.
radiation and stuff, and you have to be extremely careful and get out too. you know?
And honestly,
It's
let's see. We've been this we have
ha-
definitely exceeded our 1 hour.
okay, but the
You know,
reason,
but
yeah,
I'm
I
actually
want to
going to
say,
leave on some good notes here. And
okay,
so this is actually uh, a nuclear energy plant that's in the Columbia River Gorge up in Washington, and it's power uh, an
power
active
station.
nuclear
Yep,
power station.
yep. Well,
And
nuclear plant. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, it's incredible on the fact that it's
Clean energy.
carbon free, can produce millions of megawatts of electric electricity each year, and yeah, and it's 24/7. You know,
You know, a, a lot of people. This is something I've realized
integrates
traveling
with
around.
renewables. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
This is
the
the.
operates
Oh,
at 100% power, 24 hours a day, and has the ability to load follow or reduce power when requested. Uh, the Yeah, nearly 20% of our nation's electricity comes from 93 operating nuclear facilities throughout the United States.
all
So,
right.
yeah, so there are 93 active plants in the United States alone.
We should just get rid of them. Just destroy them. Hit them with the truck.
But that says a lot
Yeah.
that this was a accident, that Chernobyl was an accident, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't need that to happen
No, we
ever
don't
again.
have to have that again, ever again. Because that, if you can wipe out an entire continent of life for hundreds of thousands of years, you got to be fucking careful and know what you're doing
Exactly.
at all times.
Yeah, e- exactly. And I think, uh, yeah,
So, but yeah, that I think we can leave off on that note. So, thank you all for tuning
first
in.
re- the first refueling completed April. Oh, here's the thing. First refueling completed April 1986.
Oh, really? Hmm. There's something weird about that month and year. I can't quite put my finger on it. Hmm.
History. Construction permit issued March 1973.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
NRC issued operating license December 1983. First electricity produced May 1984. Commercial operation December 1984. First refueling 1986. Operation license expiration is 2043.
Hmm. Yay!
So that
All right.
plant was built near the same time,
Yeah, but
and and this one is still operational.
yeah. Hey. I think it's kind of old. Well,
Right.
anyway, I'm ready for movie time.
movie, movie,
Movie,
movie,
movie,
movie,
movie.
movie.
Anyway,
But what? Wait.
I'm not gonna say what movie it is on this podcast because it's a more serious podcast. You could just edit that out. But anyway, I'm ready to end it.
Yeah.
So
All
take it
right.
away.
So next week we
Driving.
we talk about driving.
Driving. Yeah.
Are you ready for driving education class?
Not yet. When I get to Oregon, yes. Speaking of Oregon, there is something I want to say. There's a lot of people, and I think it sort of got worse with the Portland riots back in the during the COVID, the
Yeah.
height of it all. But there's so many people that talk shit about Oregon. I mean, especially like Republican states and stuff, they talk a lot of shit about Oregon, the Democrat-run states, blah blah blah. But I feel like it's very unfounded.
Yeah, it's very one-sided.
Yeah, it's just kind of like I don't think Oregon's all that bad, honestly.
And
I mean,
that's the thing is that
the
yeah,
crime rate needs work because I should probably tell you this. They got people coming up to your door, right? In like uniforms, like UPS uniforms or pizza delivery uniforms, shit like that. And they'll ring the doorbell with one hand and they'll have a gun underneath the box or something. And that's how they're breaking into homes nowadays. You got to be careful, dude.
you know, and I think there is a lot, that I mean, there's a lot of, impersonating a police officer, but I think
Yeah.
it sh- it should also that the laws should definitely extend to any uniform whatsoever.
Yeah, I think there should be
Impersonating,
uniforms now.
delivery
Impersonating
drivers of
like a
any sort,
yeah.
they should,
I mean, if the uniform is exact, then that's a problem. You
yeah,
know, like it'd be like the same. It's not quite the same, but it's like stolen valor. It's like impersonating military personnel for gain. Only what these people are doing with these other uniforms, and they're not even military uniforms, but what these people are doing is they're committing crimes, like they're robbing people and harming people, like it's not just sneaky and underhanded. They're doing it right to your face,
yeah,
you know, and it's ridiculous, dude.
really is.
So
Okay, well,
yeah, but yeah, no, that part doesn't need to be added.
yeah.
Just you can stop recording anytime. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Next week is driving.
Yes. Yay. Vroom
Please
vroom.
please remember to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you wish.
Share if you dare.
Share if you dare. And we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.
Peace.